Welcome to aQua. In this video, I will show you how to use this tool to analyze violations of the EPA's Clean Water Act. So we'll start by selecting a time range. We'll just leave this at the default. We'll go to load water data, and here I'll select Washington State, and I will aggregate this by U.S. Census County. So once this data comes back, we'll go back to our features and we will select Spatial Analysis Water Quality Violations. From here, we can select a standard to use. So the default is EPA 304A recommended criteria. There are 116 different standards, and you can peruse this table to choose the one you're interested in. I'm just going to keep the default for now and click Submit. So the next table that comes back is a list of measurements, and this list is the intersection of the sets. The first set is all of the measurements associated with any of these counties in the time range we selected. And the other set is the set of measurements associated with that standard. So you can see that there are 88 different things we can look at for this analysis. So we see the name here, the unit, and then the number of data points associated. So for now, we'll choose zinc, and we have to select a criteria. So these are the different individual criteria for zinc according to the standard that we selected. So for now, I'll just choose this one here, aquatic life saltwater chronic, and we will wait for this analysis to come back. So once that analysis comes back, I'll close this little sidebar here. And there's a few different things we should talk about here about violations of the Clean Water Act. There's this concept of an exceedance that we'll see in several of our metrics associated with analysis. So an exceedance is a measurement that was taken that was over or in excess of the standard. So the rate or the total exceedances, that is the total number of measurements that was over the standard. The rate of exceedance is the number of the total exceedances divided by just the total number of measurements for the zinc. So this is a percentage, and it is basically the percentage of measurements that were in excess of the standard. The average exceedance percent is on average how far above the standard were the exceedances. And we also get just the average for our measurement, which in this case is zinc, and the measurement availability or the number of measurements for zinc. So our default color field here is rate of exceedance, and we can use this to look at the map and determine which spatial extents, or in this case counties, have a very high rate of exceedance. So we can see that Stevens County has a pretty high rate of exceedance, somewhere between 14 and 68%, along with Spokane County and some of these other red ones. What's pretty interesting here is to use the 3D data visualization feature to look at rate of exceedance in color and average exceedance percent in elevation. So if I turn this on, I can use this to identify spatial extents, or in this case counties, that have both a high rate of exceedance and an average exceedance percent that is unusually high. This is helpful for identifying outlying spatial extents where we'd be pretty concerned about the number of violations of the Clean Water Act for our measurement, in this case zinc, and how high above the standard those measurements actually were. So we can see in this case, Stevens County is dark red and is the highest off the map. So we see a relatively high rate of exceedance and a really high, in this case, about 7,000% for the average exceedance percent. We can also use the spatial analysis table to look at those things. So we can go to hide all and then turn on the name and just these things we're interested in. So we can grab rate of exceedance and average exceedance percent, and then we can sort this by either of these things and look and see which of those counties have the highest values. So we can see that Stevens County has 40% rate of exceedance and 7,000% for average exceedance percent. So there are a lot of exceedances of the Clean Water Act in that county, and they're all pretty severe. We can go back to the feature that we started at, and we can select a different standard, or we can select a different measurement. So why don't we grab something like iron here and then look at this criteria. So this is the results for iron coming back. We can see that we now are coloring the map based off of rate of exceedance for iron, and our 3D data visualization field has been updated to average exceedance percent for iron. We can turn that off if we want, of course, and we can look at the legend bin distribution and get an idea as to how that data is distributed. Of course, we can change this back to our zinc if we want to. And, we can look at this and have an idea. We have a pretty severe left skew here, so there actually aren't on average, a ton of rates of exceedance that are super high. It looks like we just have that one county. But we can use these charts and the charting feature here to look at interactions between things like average zinc and rate of exceedance for zinc. That's not particularly interesting, but we could look at total exceedances by average exceedance percent. We can combine any of these different fields that we have to build a chart, which is pretty useful. This concludes our video. Thank you so much for watching.